We're going to take a look at utilizing Adobe Bridge with Photoshop. So if you go and open up Photoshop, once you have that open, you can create, in this case, this is just a blank file. If you have something else that you can work with, there is one inside of the Chapter 7 resources, this goodkitty.psd file. It's inside of there. You can also open that up to start with. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and create a new file that's 3456 by 5184 at a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. That'll give you a document that at least is starting out the same size as what we're going to be using in the end. And this is going to be about organizing, bringing things into it. And then we'll go and look at a file that is currently available in the LMS that already has things imported, and we can take a look at that based on organization as well. So once you have it created, most of us have probably gone in and worked with Photoshop in the sense that we're always coming in, opening up files, dragging them in, things along those lines. But we do have the ability to go in here under File and do Browse and Bridge. Now with us coming out of Photoshop, it recognizes where we're at, making sure that we have the file in which we're intending to place them into as our current file, current tab that's active. And if you navigate into those master class files and inside of Chapter 7 on these resources, you'll see there's additional folders inside of here. And we're ultimately going to be building a file or preparing a file to create a composite image with multiple objects that are going to be utilized. Now if we come here and we start to look at it inside of Bridge, we have the ability to go underneath here and you can see how many stars they have simply by clicking on them. We can go ahead and we can rate what's in here. Now by rating these, if we have multiple images that we're going to be using or possibly going to be using, we'll know which ones are the ones that we want to end up using. So in this case, there's only one inside of there for the toddler. When we get into our toys, what are our toy ones that we have inside of here? So looking through the toy ones, are we using them 4 stars, 5 stars, good ones, bad ones? If you have multiple images of them that you've gone through and shot, looking at focus, many other things, lighting, how is all of this working? You can go in and rate them so you know very quickly what are the good ones that you want to use. So if you have some in here that are 3 stars, maybe some in here that are 4 stars. If you have 5s, those are the ones you're most likely going to end up using. And then lastly, if we look at the cat folder, same thing. So we have our cat here. If we click on that, we have our preview over here on the right, so we can go ahead and we can see what the images look like, and then deciding what one we want to use. Now the nice thing about it as we come in here and work with it is if we have one, we know we want to use this one, if you right click on it, there are a bunch of different options that are available to us. So we can come in here, we could browse and bridge, and we could just say open in Photoshop, which should go in and open it up into a new document. So it'll be sized appropriately to that image. The other thing we have down here though is the ability to place. So if you see down here, we have place, and we see in Photoshop. So if we go ahead and we choose that, what's gonna happen is it's gonna go ahead and that file then, how is it too busy? Let's try this again. There we go. So in that case, I hadn't saved it. It was an untitled document. I hadn't saved it. Photoshop didn't like that, so I just went ahead and saved it, gave it a name. So see, it goes ahead, it comes in. The normal option we place it allows us a transform handle so we can change, scale this if we need to. All of these were framed the same way, so we're going to go ahead and just click the check mark. Now when we go through and we place it, what you're going to see over here is it's placed it in there. There is our symbol for our smart object. So since we've placed it, it's still working off of the other one. We'll talk about advantages and disadvantages of working with those momentarily. So it allows us to bring that one in. We can once again go back up in here and we can browse and bridge. And we can work our way through. We know that this is the reader image that's going to go in there. We can just go ahead and right click on it and do the same thing. Now we do have the ability to go in here and copy things. So if we want to go through and make a copy of this and move it somewhere else, we can do that. We can move it, so it's going to go ahead and move that. So it's going to remove it from the folder that we're in. So when we go through and start to look at what options are available, we can begin to choose what exactly is it that we want to go in and work with. So we can export these out. Bridge isn't just a browser, and I think that's where a lot of people get in. They think it's all it is like a file browser, and that's the only thing it's used for. We mainly use it for that because it allows us to see what Photoshop files look like, Illustrator files look like, InDesign files. So we don't have to worry about only seeing the icon and that being the only thing. Now, if you did want to open this up just as its own file, like I said, you can do an open with. But once again, I'm going to go ahead and place this. I'm going to go ahead and place it into Photoshop. So now it's going to go ahead and send that over, and you'll see it continues to build up what we have for our composite. So we'll apply that. Come back in here. So right now we got him. Let's go into the toys and figure out what toys it is that we want. Now if we go and we click on these, we can see them that way. There's a few different ways we can view them. So we can see it details. We can see it just as a list. We can lock them to a thumbnail grid. We can see them as thumbnails in here. We can increase the size. So if you want to see them larger to be able to see what's happening with them, you can do that as well. And we're going to look at, there's a few different ones in here we're going to want. So if we come in and we click on that one, we like that one. We'll hold down Command. We like that airplane. Okay, the size is a little too large for me right now to. So there's the toy here, the little ring toy. I'm not going to use anything from the ring toy. But I have this other rabbit. There's a blanket, a ukulele. Another truck, picture on the wall. Now what we can do inside of here as well, like I said, is we can also come down here, drag these in and drop them onto here. It's going to go through and have you commit one by one. You'll notice that by bringing them in that way, it's going to ultimately do the same thing in the sense that we're going to see them as smart objects. So at that point, all of those objects have been brought in. At this point, all we're really doing is trying to get all of the files that we're going to use in a composite into one location. And you can go through then and you can check your different layers. If you want to look at them just individually, we can go ahead and we can see that, making sure that you have everything in that you want to have in here. So this is the early part. This is all about organizing your file. Now in this case, when I look in here, I know that down here that I want the reader to be the lowest level. Can I move that to there now? You could if you wanted to. But what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go in here, we're going to start making some new groups based upon what these objects are. You can choose to rename them now if you want to. You'll see this one's called Rabbit. If you wanted to come in here and rename them, we could. So I go ahead and I could rename this layer as we go through and begin working with it. Again, it's up to you as to whether or not you want to do that now or if you want to go in and wait. So if we wanted to, we could call this blanket. Now as we go through and we start to build these objects, figuring out what is what, I'm going to rename them just so it's easier for me to get them into their groups. Truck. Picture. Plane. That's a kangaroo. At least that's what I'm going to call it. There's our reader and there's our cat on there. So we have all those into there. So when we start thinking about what do we want to do with these? Well, what are the objects we have inside of here? So we have a bunch of toys that are available to us. So we could go ahead and create ourselves a new group. And the easy thing there is I like to work by going through and creating groups based upon objects. I know these are the same objects, selecting all those objects and dragging them down onto the folder icon, which is going to give me my group. And I'm going to go ahead and call those toys. Reader is going to go ahead and get its own group. Whoops. Oh, I guess I got it there. Reader. We have our cat. Same thing, and bring it down here. Call that cat. And then there is one other image that we didn't bring in. So I'm going to go up here and browse in Bridge once again. And if we get into here, should be one called Toddler. There it is. We can go ahead and we're going to place that into Photoshop as well. And it's going to get its own, once I commit it. Uh-oh, Photoshop. So once you bring in the toddler layer, you go ahead and create yourselves a new folder on that called Toddler. And then you may want to get into a habit then when we start applying effects that are going across the whole thing to create another folder then that is called Effects. By doing that, what's going to happen is going to set us up so that we're prepared to go in then and begin to do the additional work that we want to do inside of our document.